Welcome to Afro Moral Stories, where legends live and lessons linger. I didn't even notice the chair was empty until it was too late. Ahem. Children, come closer. Let me tell you a story, not just any story, a story of love, of loss, and of the silence left behind when a voice is gone. In the quiet town of Aku Eke, nestled between green hills and red dust roads, there lived a boy named Chuka and his grandfather, Papa Obinna. Their house was a modest bungalow, cracked cement floors, faded blue paint, and an old mango tree whose branches stretched like arms over the yard. And beneath that tree, beside a crooked bench and a rusted water drum, sat Grandpa's chair, an old hand-carved armchair with peeling arms and a faded kente cushion. That chair never moved. That chair was him. Chuka, a bright-eyed boy of 13, was the only son of his widowed mother, Neka, who worked long days at the market selling ogbono and dried crayfish. While she struggled to provide, it was Papa Obinna who raised Chuka like his own. From his first step to his first fever, Grandpa was there, humming old Igbo lullabies, cracking cola nuts, and telling tales under the moon. Do you know, Chuka, Papa would say, puffing his pipe, that the tortoise once tricked the gods with only a calabash and a clever tongue? Chuka would giggle, mouth full of boiled maize, and ask for more. In those days, the boy saw his grandfather not as old, but as wise. As strong as the trees in Suka, his wrinkled hands held stories. His slow voice carried the rhythm of ages. Every morning, the compound buzzed with familiar sounds. Mama's slippers dragging against concrete, the hiss of fried plantains, the caw of distant chickens. And always Papa's voice, calling out in his gravelly baritone, "Chuka, come and sweep the compound. This dust is older than you." Chuka would grumble, but he did it. Not because he wanted to, but because Grandpa would tell another story when he was done. Always another story. To outsiders, Papa Obinna was just another old man, bald, bent, and slow. But to Chuka, he was a hero, a sage, a living drumbeat of their ancestors, at least in those early years. But how quickly the river of childhood flows. The boy began to change. New things came into his life: school, phones, TV, and friends with shiny sneakers and fast mouths. And Papa's chair? It remained there, always waiting, always watching. The boy was growing. Like yam vines stretching toward the sun, Chuka's legs lengthened, his voice deepened, and his world began to shift. School became his new home. A concrete building with peeling green walls, dusty windows, and rows of metal desks that creaked like tired backs. From Monday to Friday, he wore his khaki uniform, polished his shoes till they shone like wet stones, and tucked his shirt like Mama taught him. "Read well, my son," Mama Neka would say, tying her wrapper at her waist. "It's books that build men now, not machetes." But with school came friends, and with friends came change. There was Efe, whose uncle sent him an iPhone from London. There was Tochi, who wore designer trainers and spoke in slangs he picked up from TV. They laughed loudly, talked fast, and waved their hands when they spoke, always comparing phones, playing music that beat like war drums. At first, Chuka was shy. He still remembered Grandpa's stories, still helped pound yam on weekends. But soon, laughter pulled him away. "Guy, you still dey sit with that old man every evening?" Tochi asked one day as they chewed suya outside a kiosk. Chuka hesitated. "He's my grandpa." Tochi chuckled. "Omo, forget those village tales. Nobody dey listen to Tortoise story again, abeg. Stream something on your phone, Jor." And slowly, Chuka began to believe them. Evenings that once echoed with proverbs and firelight now buzzed with WhatsApp pings and TikTok dances. Grandpa would sit outside in his chair, pipe in hand, watching the sky turn orange, while Chuka stayed inside, headphones over his ears, eyes glued to a glowing screen. Sometimes Papa Obinna would clear his throat. "Chuka, come, let me show you the moon tonight. It's full like the head of a calabash." "I'm doing homework," the boy would shout from inside, though his books were closed and his phone was open. The wind of the city had entered the boy's ears. He no longer heard the rhythm of the talking drum, only ringtones and rap music. Weekends came and went. The compound, once filled with laughter and stories, now felt quieter, like a market after the traders have gone. Still, Papa waited. Every evening, he sat in his chair, rubbing his walking stick with his thumb, humming songs from his youth. He never shouted, never scolded, he just waited. But like a rooster who crows at dawn to deaf ears, his voice became background noise. And Chuka? He didn't even notice that something sacred was slowly fading. When the roots are forgotten, the tree withers, and the fruit begins to sour. There's something about old people. They never rush. Their words take their time, their eyes see through silence, and their hearts, they wait, even when they are breaking. Papa Bina waited. Each evening he would dress the same, a clean white singlet, his red and black Ankara wrapper tied at the waist, and that frayed cap he wore like a crown. He would settle into his chair beneath the mango tree, tapping his walking stick rhythmically on the floor, a signal like a drumbeat calling a grandson to come. Chuka, come, he'd call, voice full of hope. Let me tell you the story of the talking yam that embarrassed the village chief. But Chuka barely looked up from his phone. Grandpa, I'm tired. I've got assignments. Just 5 minutes, WAM. This one has laughter inside. You'll like it. I said I'm busy. Chuka snapped once, not even realizing how his tone pierced the old man like a thorn. The air was quiet after that. Only the crickets chirped, only the chair creaked. Chuka didn't notice how Papa's eyes clouded for a moment, not with anger, but with the weight of words unsaid. That's the thing about elders. They rarely show pain. They just become quieter. Still, Papa tried. One Saturday, he brought out his old carved flute, the one he used to play during festivals. He sat by the doorway and blew gently. The melody was soft, like the breeze from the hills, full of stories, full of longing. Chuka heard it, but he rolled his eyes. Why is Grandpa always doing old people things? He muttered to himself, stuffing his ears with earbuds and turning the volume up. And Papa? He paused his flute and gently wrapped it back in the cloth. Another day, he called out again. Chuka, come see this snail I caught. Big like your school bag. The boy didn't even come outside. He was inside laughing at a video his friend sent, some silly skit with loud music. That night, Papa sat alone under the stars, holding the snail, whispering to it like a child. The mango tree shed a leaf, then another, then another. Mama Nika noticed. Your grandfather misses you, Chuka, she said softly one evening. He may not say it, but I can see it in the way he stares at your empty seat. I'll talk to him later, Chuka mumbled, brushing past her. Maybe tomorrow. But tomorrow is a promise the earth doesn't always keep. The day the chair sat alone, the whole compound felt hollow. That morning began like every other in Akueke. The sun stretched lazily over the zinc rooftops. The aroma of fried akara floated in the air. Chuka returned from school, his backpack slung carelessly over one shoulder, still laughing at a joke his classmate had cracked at the junction. He kicked off his dusty shoes, reached for the TV remote, and turned up the volume, but something felt off. No cough from the veranda, no pipe smoke drifting in lazy circles, no Chuka, come help me shell these groundnuts. Only stillness. He stepped outside, and there it was, the chair, alone. The old wooden chair sat under the mango tree, its cushions sagging, its arms polished smooth by decades of stories and silence. But today it looked abandoned, like a king's throne with no king. Chuka frowned. Grandpa? No answer. He checked the room. The door creaked open slowly. The radio wasn't on. The wrapper Papa always folded at the foot of his bed was untouched. Then he saw his mother, sitting on a stool, her wrapper loose, eyes red, hands trembling. Where is he? Chuka asked, suddenly uneasy. Mama Neneka looked at him, her voice barely a whisper. He collapsed this morning, by the tree. He couldn't breathe. Chuka's mouth went dry. But he was fine yesterday. He was taken to the clinic in Ogbete. He's there now, but he's not speaking. The doctor said he's very weak. The boy dropped his bag. His throat tightened like a fist. The mango tree outside cast long shadows, and the chair looked smaller now, emptier. They rushed to the clinic. The smell of Dettol and old metal filled the air. Nurses whispered. A radio played faintly in the corner. When Chuka saw him, his heart broke. Papa Obinna lay on a hospital bed, eyes closed, oxygen mask on his face. His skin, once golden and full of sun, now looked pale and thin like old papyrus. His fingers twitched slightly, as if reaching for something. Chuka stepped closer. "Grandpa?" he whispered. No response. He knelt beside the bed, guilt crashing into his chest like a river during rainy season. "Grandpa, I'm here now. I'm sorry." Still, nothing. The nurse touched Mama's shoulder gently. "Prepare yourself," she said softly. "He's an old man. His heart is tired." Chuka held his grandfather's hand. For the first time in a long time, he was truly still. No distractions, no noise, just him and the man who had once carried him on his back through muddy market roads. He squeezed the frail hand, and then a final breath. Soft, like wind passing through dry leaves. Silence. The boy didn't cry. Not at first. He just stared. Because it wasn't real. Not yet. Not until he returned home and saw the chair again. Empty. Tears are loudest in silence. That night, the whole compound wept with me. The wind had changed in Aku Eke. Even the roosters crowed softer. The sun rose slower. And in the compound where stories once danced like fireflies under the mango tree, there was now only stillness. The old wooden chair remained, unmoved, unclaimed, unspoken for. Chuka stood before it, arms hanging at his sides. His eyes were red, his lips dry. He hadn't spoken much since the burial, just nodded and followed, like a boy lost in the forest of his own thoughts. The funeral had been simple. No long speeches, just quiet faces, wrinkled women in black wrappers, and the slow wail of a flute in the distance. Mama Neka wept quietly, clutching Papa's old walking stick to her chest. But Chuka, he hadn't cried. Not yet. It was when they returned home that it broke. The minute he saw the chair, untouched, exactly as Papa had left it, something snapped inside him. He dropped to his knees, and the tears came. Big, hot, salty rivers that stained his cheeks and soaked his school shirt. His chest heaved. His fingers dug into the dusty ground. All the things he wanted to say, all the times he had brushed him off, now echoed like thunder in his mind. "I'm sorry, Grandpa, I'm sorry," he sobbed, rocking back and forth. The compound listened. Even the leaves held their breath. A gust of wind blew through the yard, and a single mango leaf floated down, landing softly on the seat of the chair. Chuka looked up. He could almost hear Papa Obinna's voice. When a child rejects the calabash, the stories spill into the sand. He wiped his tears and sat beside the chair, not on it, beside it, as if waiting for Papa to come and take his rightful place. Flashbacks began to play like old films in his mind. Papa showing him how to carve a slingshot, Papa tossing roasted groundnuts into his mouth and missing, Papa singing to him with a cracked voice on harmattan mornings. So many moments, so many chances to sit and listen, gone. He reached for the walking stick Mama had brought back from the hospital. The smooth wood was warm from the sun. Chuka held it like a relic, an ancient key to something he had lost and didn't understand yet. That night, he didn't touch his phone. He didn't laugh with friends. He didn't even eat. He just sat by the chair watching the stars, letting the memory of Papa fill the empty spaces inside him. Somewhere deep in the night, Mama came out and placed a wrapper over his shoulders. She didn't say anything. She just sat beside him, and for the first time, they mourned together. Even in silence, the voice of an elder can still echo, if you are willing to listen. 3 days after the funeral, the compound was still. Visitors had gone. The wailing had quieted. Only the distant hum of radios and the lazy swish of brooms brushing dust reminded them that life was moving on. But inside the house, it felt like time stood still. Mama Neka entered Papa Obinna's room with a folded cloth and soft hands. Chuka followed, hesitantly, The air smelled of dust, old shea butter, and palm kernel oil, the scent of memory. "Help me pack his things," she said gently. The room was small, just a wooden bed with a worn foam mattress, a stool with a Bible and reading glasses, and a carved wooden trunk at the foot of the bed. Chuka opened the trunk. Inside were wrappers, neatly folded, a gourd calabash wrapped in red cloth, beads, an old festival mask with peeling paint, a faded picture of Papa as a young man in his prime, standing proudly beside Chuka's late grandmother. But underneath it all, tucked carefully in the corner, was a small leather-bound diary tied with palm string. Chuka picked it up. "What's that?" Mama asked. "I don't know. It has my name on it." Indeed, on the front cover, written in Papa's unmistakable cursive, "For Chuka, when I am gone." Chuka untied it with trembling hands. Inside were pages of ink and wisdom. The first line stopped him cold. "If you are reading this, then I am no longer sitting in my chair under the mango tree." His throat tightened. "But I am still with you. Not in body, but in all the stories you ignored and the silences you didn't understand. Now, maybe, you will hear them." Each page was a message, not just to Chuka, but to the future. Tales of their ancestors, memories from Papa's youth, proverbs that had been passed from grandfather to father to son. When the firewood of wisdom burns low, the cold of ignorance creeps in. Do not let the river of your heritage dry at your feet. And then, one page near the end held a surprise. A drawing, sketched in pencil, of Grandpa's chair, with Chuka as a small boy curled beside it. Underneath, Papa had written, "One day this chair will be yours. Not to sit in, but to carry forward." Chuka closed the book and pressed it to his chest. His eyes brimmed with tears again, but this time, not only of sorrow. There was something else there now, a calling. He turned to Mama. "I want to know more, Mama. About him, about everything." She nodded, placing her hand gently on his back. "Then it's time," she whispered, "to return to the elders. When the roots remember the rain, the tree begins to bloom again." The Harmattan breeze had returned to Enugu, dry, dusty, and whispering through the mango trees like the voice of ancestors calling from afar. Chuka sat alone by Grandpa's chair, diary in hand, feet buried in red earth. The birds chirped, but the air still carried that quiet ache. He read Papa's words again, slowly this time, like one listening to a sacred drum beat hidden beneath silence. Return to the elders, learn what you once ignored. And so, the next morning, with the sun barely risen and Mama still sweeping the front yard with her palm broom, Chuka tied his sandals, wore Papa's old cap, and set out for the far side of the village, to Uncle Ejike's house. Uncle Ejike was not his uncle by blood, but by wisdom. An old palm wine tapper, retired now, with a back curved like a question mark and a laugh that sounded like a drum. Chuka found him sitting under a large udala tree, peeling oranges. "Ah, Chuka boy," the old man grinned, revealing gaps in his teeth. "Your grandfather used to sit right there." He pointed to a stump. "What brings your long legs to this side of Enugu so early?" "I came to listen," Chuka said. "To learn, like Papa asked me to." Uncle Ejike's eyes softened. "Ehen, then let the boy come close. The tree that listens will not fall in the storm." That morning, Chuka sat in silence, wide-eyed, open-hearted, as Uncle Ejike told stories of the Biafran War, of yam festivals, of how Grandpa once wrestled a thief with only his walking stick. They laughed, they paused, they cried. Every few days after that, Chuka would visit another elder, Mama Kudirat, who sold herbs and told him about traditional medicine. Baba Oche, who taught him the meanings of proverbs. Even Sister Ebeli, the choir mistress, who knew how the village songs began and why certain drums were never played during the dry season. At night, Chuka wrote it all down in a notebook he now carried everywhere, just like Papa's. And slowly, something changed. His eyes no longer stayed glued to his phone. His ears were no longer deaf to wisdom. He began to see, truly see, the soul behind every wrinkle, the value behind every forgotten voice. We don't just bury the old. Uncle Ejike once told him, we bury their stories, unless someone carries them forward. That someone was now Chuka. He had been asleep in a modern world, lulled by screens and distractions, but now the heartbeat of tradition was calling him awake. The chair was still empty, but the boy was no longer lost. Some chairs are not just wood and nails. They carry the spirit of those who sat in them. It was a quiet Saturday morning in Enugu, the kind of morning where the sun rose gently, filtering through plantain leaves and casting sleepy shadows on the compound walls. Chuka dragged out Grandpa's old chair from the back of the storage shed. Its legs were wobbly, the arms worn smooth from years of storytelling, and the seat creaked like an old drum. Cobwebs clung to the edges, dust coated the frame, but beneath the years, it was still his chair. The chair that once held laughter, advice, tales of tortoises and warriors. Mama saw him brushing it off and paused mid-sweep. "Ehen," she asked softly, tilting her head. "That old thing again?" Chuka nodded. "I want to fix it." Without another word, Mama brought a rag soaked in soapy water. Together, mother and son wiped the wood, cleaned the legs, and tightened the joints with nails Baba left in his toolbox. By noon, the chair stood proudly. No longer weak, no longer forgotten. Chuka carried it like a sacred relic, placing it gently beneath the tall mango tree at the center of their yard, right where Grandpa used to sit every evening. There, under the shade where sunlight dappled the ground like scattered blessings, Chuka sat in the chair for the first time. He closed his eyes. He could almost smell Grandpa's aftershave, that old bottle of Macari he loved. He could hear the faint jingle of his walking stick and the scratchy hum of the transistor radio that never left his side. The mango tree rustled. And then, something beautiful happened. Children gathered. At first, just two, Kamsi and Tobe, curious from the gate. Then more. Nena with her big eyes, Arinze with dusty feet, even baby Ife clutching a bottle of Rabena. They sat cross-legged on the warm ground, waiting. Chuka cleared his throat, suddenly nervous. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a folded note, one of Grandpa's old stories he had copied into his own handwriting. He began, "Once upon a time in the land of Nsuka, there lived a clever tortoise named Be." The children leaned in. Their eyes sparkled. Their giggles danced. Chuka spoke with his hands, just like Grandpa. He paused at the funny parts. He deepened his voice at the scary ones. The chair creaked gently beneath him, but never wavered. That day, something returned to the compound. Not just the chair, but the spirit of Grandpa. The mango tree knew it. The earth beneath the chair knew it. Even the ancestors must have smiled. From that day forward, every Saturday evening, the chair came alive again. With stories, with children, with legacy. The boy who once ran from tradition was now the one keeping it alive. A person who does not know where the rain began to beat him cannot say where he dried his body. African proverb. The stories under the mango tree awakened something deeper in Chuka. Not just the memory of Grandpa, but a longing to understand where he truly came from. One afternoon, after school, he entered Grandpa's old room. The air still carried the faint smell of palm kernel oil and powdery talc. His walking stick leaned against the wall like a soldier on duty. Chuka sat at the foot of the bed and stared at the brown wooden box Mama had carefully stored under it. The one with family letters, black and white photographs, and folded papers stained with time. He opened it slowly. There was a photo of Grandpa as a young man, holding a fish nearly as big as himself, standing beside a river Mama said was in Nsuka. Another showed a wedding scene. Grandpa and Grandma, younger than Chuka had ever imagined, smiling in wrappers and lace. Chuka took out a small diary with worn leather binding. Inside, Grandpa had written down names Chuka had never heard before. Obina, my father, a wise fisherman, one note read. Nkemdelim, my mother, she never raised her voice, but the village listened. Chuka's heart beat faster. He began drawing it out. First on paper, then later on his computer. A family tree. He added names, dates, nicknames, and stories. Every weekend, he visited relatives. Great Uncle Ndubuisi in Aka, who still cracked cola before speaking, Auntie Uju in Aba, who made the best yam porridge and spoke with a voice like wind chimes. They laughed, they cried, they remembered. Ehen, you don't know that your great-grandfather once wrestled a leopard? Your grandmother, she was the first girl in our village to go to secondary school. Chuka recorded their voices, scanned their old photos, and turned their tales into a short video series, Our People, Our Roots. He posted it online. It didn't go viral, but his cousins abroad began sharing it. Long-lost family members from Ghana, the UK, and even Canada reached out, adding their pieces to the puzzle. Soon, Chuka organized a small family gathering in Enugu. Nothing fancy, just boiled corn, groundnuts, soft drinks, and laughter under the same mango tree. He brought out the chair again, now flanked by plastic stools and folding chairs. The chair no longer stood alone. It had become an altar of remembrance. That day, a cousin from Lagos brought an old cassette. When they played it, the air filled with the crackly, wise voice of Grandpa telling a tale Chuka had never heard before. Everyone went silent. Some cried, others smiled. And Chuka, looking at the family around him, young and old, realized the tree he was building was rooted in something sacred. When the roots are deep, he whispered, the tree does not fear the wind. When an elder dies, a library burns. Value them while they're still here. The evening breeze carried the scent of roasted maize and dust as Chuka sat beneath the mango tree, surrounded by younger cousins, some barefoot, some fiddling with snacks, all wide-eyed with attention. In his hands was an old walking stick. Grandpa's walking stick. The same one that once tapped slowly across the compound, the same one Chuka used to ignore while rushing out with his phone in hand. He raised the stick and tapped it gently on the dry ground. Do you know why this stick is curved? He asked the children. They shook their heads. Because life is not straight, he said, his voice calm like the evening sky. It bends with time, just like Grandpa's back, just like our stories. The children nodded. One girl whispered to another, he talks like Grandpa. Chuka smiled, his heart both full and aching. Earlier that day, Mama had told him something he would never forget. As they prepared cassava in the kitchen, she'd paused, wiped her forehead with the edge of her wrapper, and said, You see, Chuka, age is not just about wrinkles or gray hair. It's about experience, wisdom, patience. Our elders, they are walking histories, and once they go, no one can tell their version of the story again. Chuka had gone silent because he knew. He knew how he used to brush Grandpa off, how he thought modern life had no use for old tales, how he only valued Grandpa once the chair was empty. And that's when the lesson truly hit him, not just in his mind, but in his soul. We don't inherit just land, Chuka now told the children beneath the mango tree. We inherit voices, memories, proverbs, songs. And if we don't listen while they're here, he looked toward the chair, that we'll spend the rest of our lives trying to remember what was never recorded. A small boy raised his hand. Uncle Chuka, are you a grandpa now? Laughter broke out among the children, but Chuka simply grinned. Not yet, he said. But I hope one day, when I become one, someone will sit by my chair and listen. He stood, brushed the dust from his trousers, and looked around the yard. Crickets chirped. A lantern flickered from the veranda. Mama's voice echoed faintly from the kitchen as she hummed an old tune. The chair sat quietly behind him, worn, noble, respected. A symbol, a reminder, a throne for the wisdom we often ignore. And as the stars blinked gently above Enugu town, Chuka whispered the final truth of this tale. A truth that every listener, no matter where they are, should carry in their heart. Honor the chair before it's empty. Listen to the stories before they fade. And love the elders while they still sit among us. Because in every home, in every village, in every soul, there is a chair that waits to be remembered. Moral, value elders while they're still around. The end.